Blessings, rock and metal guardians. Hope you're doing well wherever you may find yourselves. I am Dane, host of the channel, and welcome to an episode that's a little bit more cerebral than normal. I do these from time to time, and today's episode is called Are You Really a Music Fan? And it's part of a mini series called Isn't It the Music That Matters Most? And this is episode 1 or part 1. And if you've been following the channel, you know that I teach English and U.S. history, and one of the novels that I teach, depending on the year, is the American novel, The Great Gatsby. And if you know the novel, you get to the big party scene, and the main character, Nick Carraway, goes into the library, and there's a huge collection of books that Gatsby owns, and he's, fully stocked library. And there's a couple people in there. There's a young lady and another guy sitting down, and he strikes up a conversation with them. And as it turns out, none of the books in the library Gatsby has ever read. Gatsby uses these books as a form of identity construction, but it's a fabrication. I'm going to connect this to music in a few minutes, in part. So it's a false identity he's constructed. In essence, he's a fraud. He's a poser even when it comes to being an academic, someone who reads literature in this case. Again, a construct. His true self is behind the facade that he's constructed for himself, and the books are just a part of that. So he has a alternative agenda or motive in showing off these books. He wants to appear smart, right? That's part of it. Now, what Gatsby is also doing by having this show, these trophies of books, if you will, it's a source of social interaction and cognitive stimulation, but not for him, but for his guests who are in the library. And maybe afterwards, after they leave and start discussing the books, continue that sort of thing, right? It's also a source of aesthetic appreciation, again, for his guests, if they've read, first of all, some of these books, or many of them, some of what's there in that massive library. But for Gatsby, because he's not read any of these books, as I said, it's just an identity construction. It's not a social interaction for him. It's not a cognitive stimulation for him. It's not an aesthetic appreciation for him, because again, he hasn't read them. Okay? Now, everything I just mentioned, identity construction, social interaction, cognitive stimulation, aesthetic appreciation. These can be good things, but in Gatsby's case, in the context of that scene and in the novel, they're not. Okay? So one more time, these books are fake trophies to impress others. Okay? And validation is supposed to come from within, most of it, not from without. So his external locus of concentration is outside instead of inside. Now, here's the connection to music. Collecting music is good because if you listen to them actually, you're not Jay Gatsby, you don't collect CDs or records or vinyl or whatever and just show them off. Okay, you're not being Gatsby, you actually listen to them. Okay. It's pleasure, it's enjoyment. So, as I said, identity construction, social interaction, cognitive stimulation, and aesthetic appreciation can be gained if you're listening to the music, or in Gatsby's case, if you were reading the books. Okay? Again, the beauty of pleasure and enjoyment. Music is meant to be listened to, in other words. That's where the identification, construction, social interaction, etc. But there are two others. Self-expression and emotion regulation. These can also be good things if you actually read and if you actually listen to music or whatever art that you're stimulated by. Again, if you're just collecting them and they collect dust, then none of these 6 wonderful things take place. So let's review. Identity construction, social interaction, cognitive stimulation, aesthetic appreciation, self-expression, emotion regulation. Now, but what if your primary reason or the main part of your agenda in buying music is to show it off? you listen to it, so you're still not like Gatsby, but you're showing it off like Gatsby. So this is the hybrid. You have stuff, you're actually engaged with the art. It's not just a show. You listen to it, but it is also to impress. Or you have some other agenda. Hey, look at me, look what I got kind of thing, right? They're trophies, in other words. That's hubris, that's excessive pride. Okay? So, if your primary agenda is to show off and it's not to listen to music, then I think you have your priorities flipped. I'm going somewhere with this. If you're sharing your love of music, that's that social interaction, that cognitive stimulation with others that I'm talking about. That's, again, these are all good. But if your main agenda is to show off and you're a Gatsby, then there's a problem, right? So this is the issue I'm talking about with today. So I remember watching a video, it wasn't that long ago, probably a couple weeks ago, a YouTuber who has their own music channel. It's very successful. I'm a big fan. I've subscribed to that. And I can't remember what the particular episode was, but I think it was about, and it's just two guys on the panel this time around. Sometimes it's more, 4, 6, 8, whatever. And the two guys are talking about heavy metal music in the last, or progressive heavy metal music, or doom, something along those lines, in the last 10 years or so. What's the best? And the host of the channel, who's on the right, he's going over one band at a time. They're taking turns with one band at a time. I think they pick 5 or 6 bands to talk about. It's like an hour and a half, the whole episode. And the host of the channel, he mentions a band and he goes through some of their albums. And for each band in those albums, he takes anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And then the other guy chimes in. Okay? And the second guy, when he chimes in, he's giving all these anecdotes that take 10 minutes long, and this is why the episode is so long. So the first guy, the host, he's taking about 4 to 5 minutes with each band and part of their discography, and what's the best part, right? And the other guy's taking 8 to 10 minutes on each band and their albums, and while he's doing that, he's showing all the t-shirts he collected. And you can see the host is getting a little nonplussed by, could you move on with it? And, I wanted to comment, and I kept my mouth shut. I wanted to be nice. I didn't want to be a troll, but I thought about, texting him later, but I didn't want it to come across the wrong way. So to me, that's an example. Hey, I have this T-shirt from the band, and I have this one, and I have and all these long anecdotes. And that's not. You could tell from the face of the host that that's not what the episode was supposed to be about. So anyway, it wasn't each presentation of each band in their main run in their discography was not supposed to be too short, like a shotgun blast, and then move on real quickly. But it wasn't supposed to be overly long with all these anecdotes that took way too long. So that's showing off that I'm talking about. So if you're more interested in showing off, hey, look what I got, folks, instead of talking about the actual quality of the music or the joy, sharing, right? Because if you have a video, you're a YouTuber, you're supposed to share, right? It's not about, hey, look what I got. That's why I stopped doing the new purchase playlist episodes, because I thought that people who do that are just showing off, hey, look what I got. Now, if you're reviewing it, then that's different, that sort of thing. Massive haul, look what I got. I'm not doing that anymore. And I'll say more about that perhaps when I do. I'm going to do a video this week that's my mission statement for going forward with this channel. Now that the summer's approaching and exams are pretty much done, I can do a lot more videos. As you see this week, I'm looks like I'm going to post, God willing, a video every day, at least this week, and maybe back to 4 a week or something like, or at least 3 a week. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. I'm only going to post a video if I think it's quality. I'm not going to post a video just to post a video. So that's the connection to the showing off as well. So if your main reason to buy music is to show it off, then you're like a Gatsby in that sense, even though you're listening to the actual music. So there's a certain fraudulence there, or you're like Gatsby, you're a poser. Your agenda is hidden, but we can see through that kind of thing, right? So this notion of making content for more views, likes, clicks, and subscriptions. We get that because you want your channel to grow. But I'm talking about if you're not making quality videos, then it's just clickbait. And I think clickbait has become, the word has evolved. There's still the original definition is when the video thumbnail looks like you're going to talk about something or it's going to mean one thing, but it turns out to be something else. Like there was this video, I think it was I'm not sure. Anyway, the thumbnail said David Coverdale was a monster, and it led many of us to believe that that was a negative, that he was horrible to work with. But what it meant was he was a creative genius. So that's what clickbait originally means. But now I think clickbait means you're just doing it to get as many likes and subscriptions as you want, as opposed to doing it because it's quality. So that's the connection to this. So keep that in mind. So I think there are a lot of YouTubers who are frauds because they're just posting videos to post. So that's the similarity, and segue into, and part 2 of this video is, or are you really a music fan, but you're just collecting music to collect? So, and this is where collecting and the chase of having something becomes the priority instead of listening to the music. Then are you really a music fan? Now, here are some negatives that go with if you're just collecting to collect and not collecting to actually listen to the stuff on a regular basis. That's the thing. Hoarding. Hoarding can lead to mental health issues such as depression, schizophrenia, although that's rare. Depression is common. Obsessive compulsive disorder, and what's called quote-unquote shopper's disease. It's an addiction where you get a dopamine overload, and you have to satisfy that addiction by continuing to purchase stuff and fulfill that dopamine craving, right? And then, of course, with hoarding comes clutter, which deteriorates mental health, and I mentioned what those are. And tied to collecting to collect is the brainwashing. People buy something, they listen to it, they don't like, but then they keep listening to it until they've conditioned themselves to like it. Again, there's a YouTuber who talks all the time about how on the 4th or 5th or 6th listen or 7th or 18th listen, he didn't like it or she didn't like it, but on the 20th listen, it finally clicked. Well, it clicked because you bombarded, you assaulted yourself and conditioned yourself to like it. So this notion of brainwashing yourself is part of that. And so when you do that, then you're just going to buy anything and do the same thing and brainwash yourself or condition yourself to like it. And hence you get the clutter and the hoarding and that sort of thing. And tied to that is collecting things you already have. So for example, Aerosmith has like between 11 or 14 different greatest hits volumes. 11 to 14 different greatest hits collections. If you have the entire discography, then why do you need all those? Maybe 1 or 2 greatest hits because there's a bonus track that is not on their regular albums. Okay, I get that, but you don't need all those collections. So it's this addiction, hoarding quality, and I speak from the heart when I talk about hoarding, because a loved one of mine who's no longer with us, they were a hoarder in their life later after middle age, and I'm convinced that that's what eventually deteriorated their health and eventually led to their poor health, which led to their death. And so this is personal for me, and I hate when this happens to others. And because of that, I'm careful with, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. So again, are you really a music fan if you're just collecting to collect? So some people are true music fans because they actually listen to the music, but others, they're not really music fans because their priority is the chase of collecting something and tracking something down, which to me takes away from the joy of sitting down, planning yourself, and having a cup of tea or coffee, speaking of coffee, and listening to music. All right. Now, tied to what I just said about collecting to collect, there are people who, the audio files, and some of the audio files that I watch on YouTube, I love what they have to say dearly, and they're some of these are really not just collecting to collect, but they're music fans. But some of them, I think they're just collecting to collect. Do you really need 30 different pressings of all the Beatles albums? You have the Russian, the German pressing, the Japanese of, and then other countries of all these Beatles. You have mono, you have stereo, you have. Oh look, I found a Beatles pressing that was made in Sweden. Do you really need that? Sit down and listen to the actual album. That's the kind of part and parcel what I'm talking about here. So again, this collecting for collecting's sake, where somehow I have to find, I'm an audiophile, and therefore I have to find the holy grail version of this album. Like there's a Led Zeppelin 2 version that's called the Hot Mix, because the bass is more up in the mix. I'd like to listen to that. So I get if you have 1 or 2 or 3 versions of the same disc, but if you have 50 or 60, it just gets out of hand, right? Who wouldn't want to hear John Paul Jones' bass lifted up a little bit more in the mix? Maybe it's better, right? Maybe it's the definitive edition that we need. So I do get that from time to time. But at some point you have to say, oh, come on, stop, right? Again, that addiction, that hoarding, that sort of thing. And if you remember, when Indiana Jones finds the Holy Grail in the third movie, I can't remember the name, the Crusade or something. The Nazi woman dies because she tries to grab it and she falls into and then Indiana Jones's dad, he sees that his son's going to make the same mistake and he says, "Let it go, son, let it go." So here's an example. Here is The Artful Dodger by Ian Hunter, and I'm sure this is a 2014 pressing, so it's not the original CD. So it's probably been remastered, and it sounds better. I just ordered what I could because it's hard. Some of the middle stuff from Ian Hunter's hard to find, and I'm trying to finish my collection because I have his stuff on MP3, but I want to sometimes listen to this in the car or bring it to a friend's house and listen to it on their stereo or my stereo here, that sort of thing. So anyway, tracking down the Holy Grail takes away from sitting yourself down and listening and just planning yourself and taking, the music all in. Isn't the point of listening to music is to hear what comes out of your stereo and then absorb it? As opposed as going on this constant quest that never ends, right? This and people do that because of this notion that you hear this in advertising all the time. Your life will not be complete unless you own this, right? And then that's nonsense. That's marketing hype. That's marketing BS. And so what I'm saying here is that for some people, they enjoy this. But what I'm saying, okay, you enjoy this, but is it you don't get overloaded and it doesn't become a chore? But if you enjoy this, is it your number one enjoyment is listening to the music secondary or after that tertiary? That's the problem. So if you're an audiophile, listening to the music should be your priority, and then the joy of tracking and getting the Seinfeld episode. Who doesn't like a package, right? That kind of thing, right? Okay, I get that. But for me personally, after a while, so here's an example. King Crimson has, it seems, an infinite number of live albums. I'm not going to track them all down. I have one more that I want to get, and I think I'm going to call it a day. But so for some of us, it's a chore. There's a YouTuber out there who has a channel, a series on his channel called "The Curse of the Collector," and I don't believe in it as a curse. Unless it becomes a chore for you and that sort of thing, and this person sees it as a joy, and I wonder to myself, is that your first priority, or is it listening to music? Who knows? But so when it becomes a chore and it really is a curse in a figurative sense, then maybe you should stop questing for things, and then pursue the actual listening and sitting down and enjoying the music. The notion of constantly tracking things down gets old, at least for me. I can't speak for everyone, but for some of us it doesn't. But again, if it's your biggest priority, I think that's a problem. Now, if you're patient with tracking things down, then I get it. Great, you're having fun. But again, is it your first agenda? Then it's a problem. But what if you're not patient? and you're putting life on hold while waiting for your next CD to come in the mail. That is the problem that I'm talking about. Now, part 3 of this video. Some people use their equipment, speaking of audiophiles, right? Some people use their equipment to listen to records. That's the non-audio file. Again, some people use their equipment to listen to records or CDs or tapes or etc., right? While others, the audiophile, use record CDs, etc., to listen to their equipment. So one more time, let me repeat this. Some people use their equipment to listen to records, CDs, etc., while others use records, CDs, etc., to listen to their equipment. That's a problem. It should be about, again, it should be about the music that matters most. So I'll leave you with that. One more time. Isn't it the music that matters most? Thanks for watching. Take care.